Just down the road in the High Court, there's been another challenge to the way our health service is run, brought by a retired railway worker from Gloucestershire. Well, our reporter Steve Nibbs is in London for us this evening. Steve, good evening to you. What's been happening today?
Well, David, this is all about plans by the NHS Gloucestershire PCT. Like other trusts up and down the country, it wants to transfer its services to someone else. And in Gloucestershire's case, it means 9 community hospitals and other health services in the county. It will mean transferring them to what's known as a community interest company. It will be a social enterprise called Gloucestershire Care Services. Now, the transfer of these community health services will involve around 3,000 NHS staff that currently work for the PCT, and that involves the likes of nurses, podiatrists, physiotherapists and health visitors.
OK, that's the background, but why has it been at the High Court today?
Well, campaigners in Gloucestershire aren't happy about the plans. They say it's not good enough for patients, and they've asked a judge here today to decide whether or not the plans are actually legal. And this campaign is being spearheaded by 76-year-old Michael Lloyd from Stroud. He lives in a care home and uses many of these community health services, and today he's become a claimant in a case against NHS Gloucestershire. His lawyers are arguing, for example, that the plans aren't value for money because GCS will have to pay VAT. So frontline services could be affected. Also, the new staff joining won't get such a good pension, so maybe the best staff won't come to Gloucestershire. But crucially, it's whether the PCT investigated properly enough whether or not they could have transferred these services to another body within the NHS, saving money and expertise. And Michael told me today he fears that if these plans go ahead, it could lead to the privatisation of the NHS in Gloucestershire.
The ultimate danger is that we end up with a setup not unlike that of the United States. And I think most of us have some idea of what healthcare is like in the United States. I mean, you know, you have to have insurance and all that kind of private insurance.
Now, Michael is being backed in his campaign by local health campaigners. For example, Stroud Against Cuts were here today. And Caroline Malloy told me the problem they have with it is that the NHS in Gloucestershire isn't being transparent enough about the benefits these plans will bring.
They haven't answered big questions about the additional costs that are going to be incurred, the additional bureaucracy that, again, we've seen where this has happened elsewhere. They're going to be liable for VAT, for example, which they're not currently.
Worried about the number
this
of
money's
people
going to have to come off of patient care. This is something that nobody in Gloucestershire wants. Nobody in Gloucestershire has been asked if they wanted or had a chance to have a say. The staff haven't had a chance to have a proper say either, and they're very worried too.
Now, NHS Gloucestershire, unsurprisingly, say this contract, which is worth £500 million over 5 years, is right for patients, and their defence team will be back here at the High Court tomorrow to argue that. But the Chief Executive, Jan Stubbings, says that if this legal challenge is successful, it could backfire on campaigners because they'll have to tender out the services not only to the NHS but also to private companies. And if a private company wins, then that's the very thing these campaigners have been fighting against. So this is a legal challenge with a big risk.
Very interesting, Steve. Thanks very much.
Well, 2 major health stories. Matthew's still with us. So, Matthew, how significant is this challenge?
Well, it's all happening because of this major shake-up, the biggest in a generation that the coalition government are proposing. Ironically, today we've had the House of Lords throwing out some of the proposals over mental health, with Liberal Democrats and Conservatives rebelling. And this case is unprecedented. It's very important. I mean, the staff are feeling, yes, their pensions, their conditions are preserved under this social enterprise, but the fear is that if it doesn't work out, then it could then be taken over by a private company and they may lose some of their conditions. That's also what's playing out here.
OK, just clarify for us what happens in the Lords and how that might affect us here.
Well, it's simply because this is happening because of the proposals the government have put forward.
OK. Matthew, thank you very much for that.